Hey, it's Julesy. It's been so long. Happy New Year. Happy Black History Month. I'm still rooting for everyone black. I mean, all my skin folk ain't kinfolk, but you know, most of y'all, I'm actively rooting for. Hey, you know, if you're wondering where I've been, on Patreon, come join me over there, or on my little YouTube memberships that's now open. I've been on Instagram. I just be talking some daily ish over there. I be on Twitter talking about the politics, the news, the history over there. I be on TikTok scrolling mostly, and in my Discord, which is exclusive to my Patreon and YouTube members, and it's been a great time. Oh, and most importantly, I've been in the book club. Right, we've been doing a lot of work for the SBG book club, where we are focused on making reading accessible. If you have not joined, come on over to that side. Come on over, holla at me. If you're wondering where I've been, we've been doing some things, and we are a YouTube Black Creator Voice Grant recipient. Is that what the actual term for it is? I'm a member of the first YouTube Black Voices Creator Fund. So, hey, we out here. We're not abandoning YouTube in the year of 2021. We are back, and we thought it would be great to jump back into the flow of doing YouTube videos by engaging, entertaining the diaspora wars. Okay, you know why you click this. You know why you are here. If you're wondering, my shirt is available on shop.smartbrowngirl.com. Support a young thug. All right, so the Fufu challenge, a thing not started by some bored South African on Twitter, because baby, you know, a lot of the diaspora wars be coming from people just tweeting mindless stuff because they're bored and they want a reaction. They want outrage, because outrage is a social currency, and they be on Twitter and they're almost always from South Africa, and I really don't know what's going on. But no, this Fufu challenge was started on TikTok. Now, I was trying to scroll through and figure out, where did this Fufu challenge start? Like, I was clicking through the hashtag, and I really don't like that TikTok does not allow you to like sort through things based on when they're posts. So it obscures who is the originator of trends, and obscures who you can give credit to, which is why creators tend to have to be very vocal about the concept that they've started. And I wasn't really able to figure out who started or who kicked off the Fufu challenge. And actually, when you click hashtag a Goosey soup and really hashtag Fufu challenge, the older TikToks tend to be from Congolese, and it's Congo, like the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC Congo. Are Congolese people considered West African, or are they considered Central African? Somebody please let me know. But for mostly Congolese people back in like October and November, talking about making fufu and like hashtag Fufu challenge, and a lot of Francophone TikToks pop up in the early days of this hashtag. But then you get into January and you start seeing various, what is to be assumed mostly American and not just black, like a variety of people based in America trying fufu with a Goosey soup. Now, fufu is a starch item similar to, I guess, as for the American palate, the most similar thing we have is mashed potatoes. In other African countries like South Africa, they have a, forgive me if I mispronounce things too, you know, I'm colonized tongue, we barely speak English and we got braces, but I believe it's called pap. I definitely had it when I was in South Africa, and then I had fufu after that, and I was like, oh, okay, I see. But you know, every culture has a starch item that is really a supplement to the meal. Fufu, from what I remember being told when I was in Ghana, was it helps fill you up, and it also helps to pass the food through your bowel movements. It, you know, gets that stuff going, gets the things working, right? And food always is attached to culture. There's always a cultural history attached to why things are cooked the way they are, why things are eaten the way they are, and there's definitely a history to why fufu is eaten the way it is, right? And then a Goosey is also a West African dish that is called different things in different West African countries, but in Nigeria it is called a Goosey. And I used to live in a city also known as Mini Biafra, Houston, Texas, and so I myself have definitely tried a Goosey soup. And you know, actually, there were little accusations getting thrown at a young thug back in 2014, 2015 about me supposedly being anti-African. And I really think they came from this one video. Well, not that they just came from, but I think they started from this video that I posted with Christina, who's this Nigerian American I used to hang out with in Houston. And we went to a Nigerian restaurant and she ordered a Goosey. I believe that is what I tried, and I didn't care for it. And to speak to like the complication, the complexness of trying a Goosey and Fufu as a food challenge, right? I went to a Nigerian restaurant in Houston with a Nigerian American who ordered all the food for us, right? And she tastes her Goosey soup, and if you watch it in my vlog, she then says, "What is that?"
This is not a Goosey.
What did she give you?
It's bitter leaf.
Let me taste it.
It's bitter leaf.
Does it not taste good?
It's bitter. This is bitter leaf soup.
Right? No, that is a Goosey, but they cook it with bitter leaf.
I would have never had the range to go into a Nigerian restaurant by myself, order a Goosey, and understand if it was made properly or not, right? So a Goosey, I believe, comes from a seed, and it's stewed down with palm oil and other meats in it. And also, Christina had ordered fish in her Goosey, and I'm not a big baked fish eater. I really didn't even start eating seafood until I was an adult. So the idea of eating things that are extra fishy is a little hard for me. And so what I will say is this Fufu challenge has inspired a lot of outrage, and I think it's very validated because people are going and getting a Goosey and Fufu and trying it for TikTok and showing their dislike or disdain for an item by being very flagrant and very disrespectful.
Yeah,
This shit was nasty as fuck. Do not buy this shit. This shit's dirty, shit nasty, shit stank. Do not buy this shit.
And as I already said, food is part of a culture. There's always cultural history to what we eat. And we should understand this, particularly as Black Americans, that our soul food, right? Like, and I'm trying not to jump all over the place here, but like our soul food, there is a reason why certain items that, I mean, everyone might not be open to eating them, but there's a reason why chitlins are a part of our cuisine, why pig's feet, why macaroni and cheese, why cornbread, why okra stew is eaten in certain regions, right? Black is not a monolith. So if you are from like the Carolinas or the coastline from Maryland to Florida, you probably grew up eating some form of okra and tomato stew. Why we eat catfish, why we eat spaghetti with catfish in certain areas. Shout out to the Midwest and Memphis. You know, there's different foods. If you ever have had the opportunity to go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC, their cafeteria, I forget the name of it, but the foods there is so good. And they have the food broken down into different regions of America. So the Black food that you would get from the Carolinas, from the Northeast coastline, from the Everglades and Florida, from the Midwest, from the Bay Area, and all the different food items, and realizing how vast our cultural food is, but also that our food always has a political and historical motivation behind why we eat what we eat. And West African food is definitely impacted by the history of the countries that food derives from. And I think it's so interesting that a very complex dish, right? A Goosey is not the easy access point to entering into eating if we're gonna focus this as Nigerian food, right? So you pick this food item that people have a very huge cultural attachment to, right? And because of very recent history, and then you are on TikTok and you're then we have a popular YouTuber, Aaliyah J, and her boyfriend, who I don't really like doing content where I focus criticisms on individual people, right? Like, we could talk about the broader cultural implications of the way people have approached this challenge, but I don't necessarily understand, because the TikTok algorithm is A1. Let me tell you, some of the things that come up on my algorithm, I be like, are you sneaking through my text messages? Bruh. So I know you had to not only see people trying the fufu, but you had to see the number of African and just Black people and other people chastising folks for being disrespectful in trying fufu. I know you had to see one of the videos of people talking about this is not an easy food. I don't know why folks have chosen to use our food as a trend and are going for one of the more complicated dishes, right? One of the things that makes a goosey so complicated for myself is they use dried shrimp or dried crayfish seasoning. And I think it's important, especially if you are going to do it as a trend or do it as a video, like, you know, something that I've had to learn on my own, because as I said, I did that video with Christine, and then I went to Ghana. I did a video at the Movenpick Hotel because they have a Ghanaian buffet where I could get all the food items at once, and I tried a bunch of Ghanaian food. And I'm gonna tell you, the thing that I know, it's not that I don't like West African food, right? That's not it. I'm not going to encapsulate an entire like region of a continent and say I don't like the food. I know that I don't like dried shrimp or dried crayfish seasoning. It is a flavor profile that I did not grow up eating. It's not familiar to me, and it is like, it makes things to me taste extra fishy. One of the things that is highlighted in this video that I did with Christina, and that I've been like when I'm watching this trend, I knew it was gonna go left as soon as I saw it, because you cannot just go to any African restaurant and get a goosey and know what you're getting. I was in a city that is damn near 1/3 Nigerian with a Nigerian at a Nigerian restaurant, and she ain't like the goosey, bruh. So I'm looking at these folks and I'm seeing some of these containers open and they're just oil. Like, it's just a vat of oil, and I'm like...
So we got some egusi soup and some fufu, and we're gonna try it for you guys. And this is a place in Arizona. You can pause it and take a screenshot of it. This is the place that we got it from. The smell, I'm sorry, but I don't know why has nobody been talking about the smell, because it's foul.
We had to make our own fufu.
Yeah, we had to make our own fufu because they didn't have it.
Then they're just going to African restaurants and ordering a goosey because they saw someone else do it as a trend. And dishes like that, you really need to go with someone from that culture and have them explain to you what you're eating. And I'm seeing, like, I understand that, like, seeing maybe Asian folk go do the trend like Korean and Chinese people do it, and being comfortable with the tripe and the cow's foot because they have similar foods in their cuisine. And in African American culture, it's like a thing about whether or not we even eat pig's feet. Like, people will really turn their nose up at, like, you know, that's a very specific part of the culture that not everybody embraces. And so when we get into these more gelatinous cuts of meat, and we're not a culture that is culturally, like, it's kind of out of vogue now for us to eat the fattier meats, which is why someone like my great grandmother would enjoy pig's feet and chitlins. And for me, it was literally a texture thing. Like, this is also why I don't eat oysters. It is a texture thing. And so, you know, it makes sense to me when I see Korean and like Chinese and certain Asian folk who have more fermented foods and more seafood based. They also have similar, like, you know, fish sauce and oyster sauce and similar flavor profiles in their cuisine. So this is not a big jump for them to go and try a goosey. But I know we're Black Americans, and, you know, I gotta shame my own folks. For some of you niggas out here that's just chicken fingers and french fries trying to go and try to have a goosey soup, y'all cat. Y'all cat. Y'all don't even eat all our soul food. Hey, why you try to do the goosey thing? Why? You absolutely, if you're going to go try it, you need to find somebody who is from the community, whether you find a Cameroonian, and I really don't know what they call the same soup across the region, but, you know, if you know a Cameroonian who could take you to a Cameroonian restaurant, if you know an Ivorian who could take you to an Ivorian restaurant, if you know a Ghanaian who could take you to a Ghanaian or a Nigerian, you know, so on and so forth, and someone who is familiar enough with the food that they can both properly introduce it to you. Because when you're eating foreign foods and nobody can explain to you the food, you're gonna have a harder time with it. And it is just offensive, as I've already stated, to get on and just be disrespectful of a food item that has all this culture to it. Now, it's okay to dislike a food, and there are ways to do it tactfully. But one of the other sides of the coin for me is also in some of this discourse critiquing the offensiveness that has come out of this, you know, cultural food item as a trend. Some of y'all just tiptoeing. Some of y'all just tiptoeing into xenophobia against my peoples, okay? Y'all just tiptoeing into xenophobia against African Americans. And it's a lot of flattening. You know, we're on Clubhouse. I'm on Clubhouse. I do not really do a whole lot of rooms on Clubhouse. We do have a little book club on there, but I really be silent, listening in the rooms. And I was in a room earlier this morning because Aaliyah J has really upset folks, and the British Nigerians were just going in. It was a lot of commentary and a lot of flattening of the experience and a lot of assumptions and generalizations about a faction of the diaspora that is not a monolith, right? And there are also socioeconomics, there's regional issues, there's all these other things that impact, you know, people's access and understanding to different cultures. And I just really don't, I think the conversation is important to have, but I want us to be careful about not calling out someone's ignorance by being ignorant ourselves. When it's specific to Aaliyah J, right? Because that's what's really gotten this conversation. The Shade Room posted a clip of it, then this room on Clubhouse.
She don't want to eat it. This is what you wanted. You wanted this. Where are you going? No, eat it. No, you have to eat it. No, you have to eat it.
I don't watch Aaliyah J's content a whole lot, so I don't know if it has come out prior to this that her boyfriend Menelik was Kenyan American, right? He states it in the video. But I'm wondering, has it come about earlier? Because one of the things I keep questioning when people are critiquing and flatly critiquing Black Americans or African Americans and making sweeping generalizations about African Americans is, are the people that are being disrespectful flatly African American? They might be Black in America, but how do you know that, like, what their actual ethnicity is, right? Because unless somebody is posting a flag in their bio, unless somebody is, you know, poignantly saying that I am this, how do you know that they're not Caribbean? Especially for someone like Aaliyah J, who was born in, Massachusetts and then moved to New York City. Those are two cities with huge Black immigrant populations, right? And so I just think that's why we have to be careful about the criticisms, right, that we use against an entirety of people. And we don't have any way to you'd be surprised how many people have a parent from Trinidad, have a parent from whatever Caribbean place, and you are making this an us versus them. Oh, Caribbeans will never be this disrespectful. Only African Americans are disrespectful like this. And it's like, you know, some of these people got white mamas.
Like this. No. The fuck?
Some of these folks just live in the backwoods, and you know, maybe the food they got really wasn't good, and it's not that a Goosey to them is not good. It's that, you know, the restaurant they went and got it from ain't good. But you know, when we start making these like overarching generalizations on both sides, all we do is reiterate the harm. All we do is pass the trauma on back and forth to each other. And if the point of these conversations is to move forward, right, and to not just engage in the pettiness of these diaspora wars, we do have to just be more considerate in how we talk about these things. To snip this up and close it out, it is okay to dislike a food, but you have to be respectful when you are publicly proclaiming what you dislike. And also, I think it definitely supports if you're a person that's just going to get into, because everyone's doing the mukbangs and the food trends, and this is going to happen again, to actually be able to communicate what it is you don't like. Is it the texture is different for you? Is it there's something in the flavor that I'm not used to? Oh, this is too spicy for me. There's different ways, respectfully, to communicate why this eating experience is not enjoyable for you in the same way it is from somebody who is used to that food item. And do it respectfully. This Fufu challenge is not all bad. There have been plenty of West African and Nigerian restaurants across the country that have greatly benefited from the uptick in interest of people trying their foods. This has helped a lot of small businesses. So it's great to see that sort of interest, but we do all have to remember on all sides of the conversation to just be more respectful, more understanding. And if you want to try a new cultural food, go with the person from that culture. And I promise you, there's always like an entry point. You know, you could have got some jollof rice, you could have got some suya. I don't know how y'all skipped over the suya to go to a goosey soup. Man, you could have got the okra soup, because for those of us that grew up eating okra, you know, there are so many different things. I mean, as an African American, I would not, my first dish that I give to you would not be okra stew, our version of it, right? The okra and tomato stew that I grew up eating. That's not something I would go to a restaurant and order unless I knew that that restaurant knew how to properly cook okra, right? It's a tricky, complicated dish to make. And so there are other things that I would probably serve to you first if I was going to serve to you the food of my culture, right? And that goes across the board. So definitely, you know, seek out the advisement first of the people before you go making a fool of yourself. But it's always great to try new cultures and to appreciate and not denigrate, you know? That goes both ways. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting. I hope I was coherent. If you've made it all the way to the end, definitely see more of my content on Patreon. Join me on YouTube Members. And stay black and fly. Deuces.